Okay, welcome back to the Waco Tribune-Herald Super Centex Friday Night Lights podcast. I've got Trib sports editor Bryce Cherry here with me. I'm Chad Conine, and we're talking high school football again, following week 2, leading up to week 3. And let's see, Bryce, I covered Lorena against China Spring the other night, and China Spring's really good. Lorena's really good. China Spring won, which I think we probably all picked China Spring to win. And Lorena falls to 0-2. So they lose to Franklin, number 1 ranked Franklin, in a close game the first week. They lose to China Spring in a close game the second week. And my question then is Ray Biles, Lorena coach Ray Biles, is he the new Johnny Tusa? Since you just had me explain that, I'll let you now explain it to the audience.
Yeah, I kind of figured this is where you were going with that comparison, but basically you're saying that when Johnny Tusa was at Waco High, he scheduled really tough in the non-district season. Didn't necessarily, I mean, obviously he wanted to win, but win or lose, it wasn't as big a deal. As much as toughening his team up, preparing them for down the road, getting better, all of that stuff. He felt like those kind of games had lasting benefits. And it's interesting. So I was in Lorena last night as we record this podcast here on a Wednesday afternoon, early evening. Let me bring up a couple of things. First of all, I'm covering a volleyball match, and it's Lorena and Crawford, 2 of our best volleyball teams around here. And I asked both coaches, it really honestly felt like a playoff atmosphere. In the 4th set, both sides of the stands were standing up. It was that kind of, every point was hotly contested. And I asked both coaches about it after the match about just, do you feel like a game like this has lasting benefits, it's going to prepare you well for the postseason? And both of them said, yeah. And that's why they schedule it that way. Jeff Coker at Crawford doesn't duck anyone. So now bringing it back to football, Ray Biles actually was sitting right in front of me for a good chunk of the match. And so we would chat occasionally. And I asked him about Gatesville, who's his opponent coming up this week. And he was, kind of giving me a little insight on the Hornets. And he basically just said, man, we just need to have something good happen here. Obviously, he doesn't like being 0-2. And I sort of couched it by saying, look, man, you guys have played 2 pretty good teams. And he smiled and agreed, but at the same time, they want to win. And I think there's a balance there where you want maybe a little bit of a mix, right? Teams that are going to challenge you and stretch you and expose your weaknesses, but also maybe a team or 2 in there that you can beat and get a little confidence from. And I feel like Gatesville is no pushover for Lorena. They're playing better, I think, than they basically made some progress these last, few years. However, I feel like Lorena probably gets its first win this week, and probably one of the better 0-2 teams in the state. They have fallen out of the state rankings because of those 2 losses, but I think they'll be back.
Yeah, I talked to Coach Biles just a little while ago, and I asked him the same thing. And with Gatesville and then Madisonville is their last game before they start district. So those are 2 4A D2 teams. So they go from number 1 ranked team in 3AD2 to the number 7 ranked team in 4AD2. And then you keep going with 4A schools. Now, Lorena was a 4A school not long ago, so I think they can handle that. Now Gatesville is still a lot bigger school than they are. And I don't know about Madisonville, but I think, yeah, I'm there with you. The challenge is still there this week as they're playing a bigger school. The scary thing, if you're Lorena and Ray Biles and all those guys, is Gatesville can beat you, and then you're 0-3. And how long do you go before you go, we thought we were going to be really good, and we're sitting here, we got to win 3 in a row just to get out of the hole.
Yeah, and that's where you're dealing with high school kids, and that's why I say, I don't want to say mix in a cupcake, but at the same time, maybe schedule, a game in that non-district slate where you should win. If you play well, you should win that game. And because you're talking about confidence. And with high school kids, it's easy for confidence to waver if you're not winning games. And I think coaches sometimes have to explain to the kids after the game, look, man, that's a really, really good team that you just went up against and went toe-to-toe with. I think Lorena should take some confidence out of making it a game with China Spring when it looked for a while like it might be, headed toward a runaway.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. So I'm going to test your improv skills here. I'm going to throw out my second question on our script because I thought of a better one.
Okay.
Let's say you get to be the district commissioner of any district in our area, right? And you're going to get to expand your district before district play starts this season, okay? This is obviously a takeoff on Big 12 expansion discussion, right? So, and you can go cross division. Heck, there's no rules here. We can go across classifications if you want to. So which district do you want to expand and increase their visibility, and who are you going to do it with?
Wow. This is a curveball. I am glad I have my trusty copy of the Tribune-Herald stats book.
Oh, yeah.
Sitting right here next to me so I can at least peek at the districts. But as you sort of framed that and said, there's no rules, we can kind of cross divisions, basically. I would think that we wouldn't cross classifications. I mean, but let's say we can cross divisions a little bit within a classification. And right. I'm putting the likes of Mart and Chilton and Hubbard together with the likes of Crawford and Bosqueville
and Valley Mills.
Yeah, I think that would be a really fun district. And I mean, wouldn't you just love to have Mart and Crawford on the schedule every year? It doesn't always happen, and
right.
And those are two of our most consistent small school programs around here. They both make deep runs, in the playoffs pretty much every year. Last year, obviously Mart all the way to the state championship game again, and Crawford was in the state semifinals. So, to get a guaranteed Mart Crawford matchup, but also, Mart Bosqueville, Hubbard, those would all be really fun district games. The fact of the matter is they are they in different divisions? Let's see.
Yeah, yep. Mart, Hubbard, Chilton is in D2 and the other is D1. I'm glad you brought that up because it leads me to a point that we should have made on the podcast anyway. The Chilton Pirates, they're for real, I think, just simply by virtue of the fact that Italy beats them by, I think, 30 or 40 last year, and they turned the tables on them and beat them last week, and so I've got my Saturday edition here. They beat them by a point. They made all their extra points and beat them by a point. Chilton's a proud program. They've won a couple of state championships and or at least one and played for a couple. They won 2?
I think they've won 2. I want to say early 70s, and then again that one in about 2006, 7, 8, something like that.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean, and so to see Chilton and Bosque, I mean, Chilton Bosqueville, that might be the matchup. You know, that might be like, you know, I don't want to, you know, too narrowly define our made up district here, but Chilton Bosqueville could be the third place game.
Be fun to like I said, to see those kind of matchups. And it's not to say that some of these don't happen, you know, occasionally anyway.
Right.
Kevin Hoffman and Clint Zander are good friends. That would be the Mart coach, the Bosqueville coach, and they've met frequently in non-district when they weren't district opponents. And sometimes when they don't play a non-district, they at least scrimmage against one another. You know, I think Clint sometimes, you know, gets tired of playing Mark because they're tough to beat, you know. So, you know, that sometimes it may be good for Bosqueville to schedule someone else. But that's another case of, you know, it's unfortunate that teams like Mart and La Vega sometimes have to really shake the trees a little bit to find opponents, because if you're one of these other up and coming teams, why not challenge yourself and see where, you know, see if you can beat them, see if you can get better. I mean, they're obviously going to make you better and show you where you need to improve.
Yeah, I think Mart has trouble, you know, fitting in a lot of games, and they would certainly not fit in very many districts in the state of Texas where they're at. I mean, they're just gonna not have that much competition. Okay, so for my district, if I want to be the commissioner of the La Vega, Midlothian, Heritage, Stephenville district, and try to go get China Spring and Connolly. How about?
That'd be fun. I mean, obviously, you know, those are familiar foes in terms of they're in a district in every other sport. La Vega, Connolly, Robinson, China Spring. You know, we see that in basketball, we see it in baseball, track, all those other sports. So it'll be fun again to kind of see that, see them reunite in football. Obviously, you know, La Vega is 4A D1, China and Connolly and those schools are 4A D2. There's just a little bit of, you know, enrollment separation there, but not enough for them, you know, to be in different classifications or anything. So it's not like, you know, you're not, you know, it's not David and Goliath.
Right. Okay. Well, we got to talk about the NFL starting up on Thursday night, since that's a topic that you guys, I assume, don't cover on your college football podcast. And I don't know, at what point do you really feel like the football season is in full rhythm? It's like, okay, this is it, we're there.
Yeah, I would think it's maybe that first weekend of the NFL season, because by that point you have high schools, you have college, and you have NFL. So you've got your Friday, Saturday, Sunday, all your bases covered. I'm sort of mixing my metaphors there. My sports metaphors.
Well, not only Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, nowadays you can almost get football any day of the week. And certainly in 2020 last year, did we have a high school game on every day of the week except Sunday? I think we may.
Yeah, I think we did. We never did cover any of those Monday games that I remember, but they were out there. Yeah,
they were out there, and it was kind of a weird deal. And we need to talk about this sometime, but there is a district out there. I want to say, is it the Hubbard Mart district? I don't know. I gotta look into this, but you and I will talk about it later. But there's a district that's going to be playing its district games on Thursday nights, which is kind of different. And I think it's again one of these COVID precautions. Essentially, we saw it last year where Midway's district played its varsity games on Friday and its sub-varsity on Saturdays.
Yeah, so you could bring your JV players up
if you needed.
Yeah.
Correct. If you had a whole bunch of kids sick, then your JV guys wouldn't have played yet. And so this district, I know Wynn Emmons was talking to me about it, is playing its varsity games on Thursday and its JV games on Friday, if you can wrap your head around that one.
Okay. All right. Anything to try to trick the COVID virus. Right?
There you go.
Got to outsmart the virus somehow.
Yeah, sure.
Well, we'll kind of bring it home with boy. There's no two sports writers in the history of sports writing that love to eat more than you and John Werner. It's like, where is our game and where can we eat? I think that's the first two questions on y'all's mind always. Tell us about Saturday.
Incidentally, we got a good chuckle out of you responding to our tweets and saying it's a miracle these guys aren't 600 pounds apiece or whatever.
Yep.
And I assume you must not even watch our podcast, the One True Podcast.
Did y'all preface it last week with that?
Well, we have historically always pretty much ended our podcast with something we call Culinary Corner, which now you're co-opting by closing this podcast with a little food talk. But yeah, we always talk about food. We're sports writers. We like to eat.
Russ, I don't have to watch y'all's podcast to know that y'all probably talk about food every week on it.
Yes. To answer your question about going to San Marcos last week, we ate at a fine Mexican food establishment called Herbert's Taco Hut, and my brother Dimby met us there, and we had a great meal, man. And I tell you what, you talk about restaurant-sized portions. It was an abundance of food.
It was big portions.
It was big portions. Put it this way, John and I ate it like we met at Herbert's, met Dimby there at like 3:00, and we covered the game, wrote all our stories, stayed late and finished a notebook on the game, and then finally left, and we hadn't eaten, since 3, and didn't really feel like eating again. I mean, we on the way back, we were looking for like something, and we stopped at a gas station, got a snack, but we considered Whataburger, McDonald's, something like that, but the lines were just too long, and we didn't, I don't think, had the appetite to really pull it off. So,
well, see, in that situation, and especially coming from the south on I-35, you got a built-in, snack bar now just north of Temple. You know what I'm talking about?
I don't think we wanted to wait until we got to Buc-ee's. Free shout out to Buc-ee's there. We need to start charging these people for advertising. But yeah, we didn't want to wait quite that long before we had something. But yeah, we ended up going to a gas station, got a little snack. But I didn't feel bad about not eating again because I was legit stuffed. I mean, that Herbert's, if you're down in San Marcos, excellent.
I've never been there. I'll have to try it. One thing I'm learning through about nutrition and all of that as I try to get better at it. Portion control is all about planning out the whole day. You can make yourself want to eat a smaller dinner by eating a bigger lunch, especially, if you get some non-calorie dense foods, kind of fill up at dinner. You just be like, I can go light at dinner,
Yeah. And like I said, we basically skipped dinner. That said, we got our calories and then some in our midday lunch.
Well, I'm surprised that y'all did skip dinner, just because John Werner, when he's traveling to cover something, he's gonna get the maximum out of every meal, like the maximum bang for his buck. It's like his goal in life is to win every meal.
Yeah, I don't know why this is controversial. As a sports writer, I feel like you should be abiding by this. This goes back many years. I mean, there's a long storied history of us eating well, in this profession.
It's part of our lineage, right?
Yes, yes. And John still says that Mickey Humphrey, the late great Mickey Humphrey, of course, covered high school football and sports at the Trib, was probably, one of the best foodies that he ever saw, and also one of the biggest eaters. He could like wipe out a buffet basically. And Mickey wasn't like a big heavy guy. I mean, but man, he could apparently put it away.
All right. Well, we'll put the brakes on the food talk, since apparently there's been a lot of it on our 2 podcasts this week.
Yeah. Come for the football, stay for the food.
That's the motto at the Gatesville press box anyway, right?
Absolutely. That's all-time stuff there. So
yeah, my one regret this week covering Gatesville versus Lorena is that it's in Lorena and not Gatesville.
Yeah, absolutely. Any excuse to drive to Gatesville is a good one.
Yep. All right. Well, that'll wrap it up for our Super Centex Friday Night Lights podcast. We'll see you next week.
All right. Sounds good.